Hello, and welcome back to another video. It's been a couple weeks since I've addressed you guys directly, and obviously that is because I released my latest short film. Hopefully you guys found that as enjoyable as I did. It was an amazing process to create that, and that's actually the topic of today's video and the next couple of videos. So I want to go over just the process, kind of from beginning to end. I'm not going to talk about this in a linear way because it's not really possible. I'm going to break this into 3 separate videos. So this video is going to be talking about the story of the short film and how that came to be. The second video is going to be talking about the actual filming of the video, and then the third video is going to be talking about the editing of the video. Now, this project was unique because all of those things were kind of happening at the same time. So this was technically the second film I've ever made without a script. And if you're wondering what the first one is, it's the first film I ever made, Star Kids 1. That was actually the last time I made a movie without an actual script until now. And the reason for that was because the story for this short film, it came from the first thing that I filmed, which I initially had no idea was going to be anything other than just some cool footage. But I filmed some footage at the Japanese Tranquil Garden in San Diego, and I was editing it together, and I got the idea of, like, this has kind of this dreamy feel to it. What if we could do something with dreams? What if we could do something where this is a vision or a dream that somebody has? And then it was kind of, what does that mean? Well, what could this paradise, this garden, this peaceful place mean to someone if they were to dream about it? What could this represent? And when looking through the footage, I kind of got these shots of the fish. And that's when I saw I had these beautiful shots of, kind of 2 fish swimming together. And I was like, it's very beautiful. I like that, and I like what that could kind of represent. And so I ran with that as the kind of starting idea. And this is why I say to not write like this. This is why the title of this video is the way that it is. I didn't have a plan for this film. There wasn't a script and a through-line story. I was making it up as I went along. And so after I got that initial idea of do something with the koi fish, I kind of built around that. So from there it became, all right, how do we tell a story? You can have kind of these sequences, but how does it all come together as a story, as a full thing? And that's when the idea for the note came into play. That was actually an idea that I had on the same day that I filmed the footage at the garden. I got that idea, and I actually filmed a version of that while I was in San Diego, and I'll show some clips from that now. It's very similar to the original, but I obviously decided to reshoot that because a lot of the rest of the scene takes place in my actual bedroom, so it would have been weird to have, the first scene be in a different place, and then I think that just would have thrown things off. So I reshot that scene, but that was something that I had, like, from the beginning. And so I had this idea, okay, we have this note, we have this dream sequence, where does it go from there? That's kind of the beginning. And then it became, all right, what if I took this footage and just edited it differently? I kind of put it together, and I had this beautiful dream sequence, but I was like, what if I edited it differently to make it dark and make it sad and make it, kind of a little bit, depressing in a way. And so then that's where the second sequence came in, and it was like, all right, so now we have this idea of a kid, he's got this note that he gives to a girl and gets rejected, and so then now he's all sad, and now these dreams are reflecting that. It's reflecting these emotions that he's having. And then it's what happens after that. You have that kind of inciting incident of the note. Where does it go from there? And this was the one thing that I thought was the most interesting, because I feel like this was a part where it was like, this is all me. This is all whatever I want it to be. There was a lot of just ideas that I threw out there that I tried, and I really, it is following kind of the stages of grief and the stages of kind of getting over something difficult. And with that as like the core idea, I kind of just started filming sequences to kind of fit that narrative, and it kind of just revealed itself. And from the get-go, one of the things that I really wanted this film to be was weird. The working title was, the experimental short. That was the idea, was to make something experimental, to make something weird, to make something that's different than I've ever done before. And so there was a lot of sequences where I was like, what can I do that is weird but also gets the message across. I didn't want to be weird just for it to be weird. I wanted it to still have that heart and still have that message. So that was a big, difficult thing that I had to balance was too weird. You don't want to be too weird because then it distracts from the story, and you also don't want to be too normal and too like focused on just telling the story as like straightforward as possible because I feel like that's not interesting. And so it was finding that balance in there, and that's where we obviously had the dream sequences. So one of the core ideas I had was how do we develop the story through kind of two plots. You have your main plot, which is the stuff that's happening in the real world, and then you have the dream plot. And how can those things kind of happen as their own stories, but also, reflect each other, essentially. And so that was kind of the main idea that I was running with and that I was working with. And there was no script. There was no, this is what we're going to do specifically. I had ideas for these sequences, and I kind of wrote the sequences down and then made shot lists, but that was it. There was no actual, like, writing process, per se. It was all done as I was filming. It was all done as I was editing. I wouldn't really recommend this method to anyone, to be completely honest with you, because when you're not working by yourself for most of your projects, it's kind of annoying when you're making stuff up as you go along. I think this is a very unique situation where I was able to write a film as I was making the film. And it only worked because I was the only one, filming and the only one whose time was being used. And so I could kind of experiment and I could kind of find, what I wanted the story to be as I was making it. And once I got to any stage where I was working with other people, I made sure to have a shot list that was very specific and I knew exactly what I wanted. That way, when I was working with other people and it was their time and it wasn't just me, who's putting effort and investing time into it, that I was using their time wisely and respecting their time. If you're doing something like this, or if you have a crew that's, or a couple people who are really like on board with this kind of thing, you can do this. And I think there is something good about kind of finding your story and writing the story as you make the movie. It really helped me reinvent the wheel, essentially, because I wasn't trying to say I would need to write a good story. It was, let me direct something, let me create something, and let the story kind of reveal itself out of that. And because I had spent, I had the system, that I had this way of making movies, and I got kind of stuck in that, and I felt like I couldn't, it was difficult to evolve, it was difficult to really take that next step with my work. This really helped me in that sense, because I literally threw out my entire playbook and said, we're going to start from scratch, and we're going to find a new way of telling stories, and we're going to find a new way of making things. And I know this video has kind of been all over the place, it's been a lot of rambling, but this was a weird project to describe the writing of, because there really wasn't any writing, to be honest. Like, it was very much figuring out what I wanted things to be, and then just filming them, and then kind of reacting to what I'd filmed and saying what pieces can get added to that. So in the next video, it's going to be a lot more structured, because I'll try to do it as chronologically as possible to say, this is what I started filming, and then I filmed this, and this inspired that, and so that it'll be a little bit easier to follow that video. And then it's the same thing with the editing, where there's an easier timeline to follow and an easier timeline to explain of how things came to be. Plus, I will also have a lot more Easter eggs, a lot more things that I can, behind the scenes stuff that I can really talk about in those videos. And so just stay tuned for that. But with that all being said, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye for now.